Hi, it's Virgil from Plain Places Adventures. As you can see, we're not in the Piper Comanche tonight, but wanted to take a quick look and quick first impressions on the new Garmin SmartCharts that just came out. Unless you've been hiding under an aviation rock in the aviation community, you've seen that all over the news. I'm not going to try and repeat a lot of the in-depth videos that have been done. Just really wanted to give more first impressions and do a bit of comparison of how the SmartCharts differ from both how geo-referenced charts used to be displayed in Garmin Pilot, as well as how they're displayed in the flight plan mode of the app, as well as on the Garmin 750 and 650 series navigators. Because I think there's pros and cons of most of these, although I will say my overall first impression is SmartCharts are a big jump up from traditional charts. So with that, let's do a quick orientation again. So these are vector drawn. Instead of being PDFs in the app, you can still easily switch between the official charts and the SmartCharts. Also note that SmartCharts aren't available for all approach procedures at this time, at least. I assume that's maybe I don't know if Garmin has to do some things by hand or if it's data that's supplied by the government. So note that. I will say again, I really like the clear, easy to read text in the frequency bar. Again, it's a big, great, easy way to find the frequencies for an airport. One peeve I have about Garmin Pilot is if you go into the airport info or you access that from the map page, the frequencies are really small. You've got the simplified briefing strip and missed approach procedures, all really easy to access, really easy to hide. I also, again, first impressions really like how they display the minimum safe altitudes. Directly on makes it a lot easier to visualize those sectors relative to the actual waypoints they're based on. And one other thing I really want to, whoever decided to do this for Garmin, distance to threshold in the horizontal view. Wonderful. I know I'm often 2 miles outside the final approach fix, handed over to advisory. I'm to call how far I am from the airport. Now this is a lot easier. Instead of having to look at a different display that's tuned to the airport as a final destination, or do mental math adding up distances from the threshold back to my fix. I can just look down and see here that if I'm 1 mile from Hegbob, this IF, well, I'm 12.5 miles to the airport. So really great. So how are we going to sort of tease out all these things tonight? Well, we're going to fly the virtual Comanche in Microsoft Flight Simulator. So here we've got Garmin Pilot App on the far right with the SmartChart view. We can also easily flip to the primary map view. Let's go get it in track up mode. We've got that same approach to Pensacola programmed. We're going to depart Roscoe Field, my home airport. Here puts us pretty nicely convenient for this RNAV 8. We're going to fly a full approach using the initial approach fix there. And you can also see the TDS Garmin 750 simulator. Again, same flight plan loaded, same approach loaded. So goal here is, again, a nice sort of compare and contrast of how these approaches are depicted in these different views and why you might prefer different views at different times. So let's go ahead and take off and see what we find. Not a lot of terrain down around this neck of the woods. There are very tall towers to the north and northwest of Pensacola, which is why the minimum safe altitudes are so high that direction. But down in our neck of the woods, minimum vectoring altitude is only 1,700 feet, and why this initial altitude is only 2,000 feet out just north of Lillian, Alabama. So we're going to climb up to 2,000 and line up for a teardrop entry on this course reversal. And as you can see, the main flight plan map view of Garmin Pilot App is very similar to what you see in a Garmin 750 or at a much smaller scale or smaller screen size on the 650 series. It's one of the attractions for me for initially choosing Garmin Pilot a year and a half ago when I got back into flying after a 12-year break was harmony between the app experience and the avionics. We're not in a hurry tonight, so we're going to do all this somewhat throttled back. Now if we switch over to the SmartChart view in the EFB, here's the presentation we get. So again, we're not getting the sort of cheat on the type of entry, but we are getting a nice clear view of where we are oriented to the approach. Okay, so we're going to hold teardrop, so we've got confirmation on our navigator on that. So we approach the fix. And now we've got turn anticipation to a 274. All right, so we're going to roll out on this teardrop. You can also see now on the plan view or the horizontal view, you can see our little airplane headed outbound. The nose is where you're at, so the little flashing blue nose, that's your actual position. That follows Garmin's convention that the nose of your top-down depiction on the map in all of the Garmin products is also basically indicates your location. These are 4 nautical mile legs, and that's why this has us on a fairly shallow cut. Practically speaking, we could have taken a larger cut at the teardrop and done a minute or 2 minute legs for the course reversal as well. But we'll go ahead and fly this out. You can see the CDI, we're starting to get, again, full deflection away from the inbound center line, which is a 080. And again, if we switch back to map view on the EFB, what we get there is not quite the same, but almost the same as what we get on the 750. All right, here's our turn. Back to chart view. Moving maps have really made this aspect of IFR flying a lot easier. in the pre-moving map days, so you had a lot more mental head game around where you were and all these maneuvers and keeping track. And coming through the center line, it's like we're going to overshoot just a little bit. But came out pretty close, turning on to the final at 4 miles. And we'll get a good cut to get back on that center. One thing, of course, we can see there's almost 7 miles from here to the final approach fix, and the glide slope intercept itself is pretty close to that final approach fix. So once we're inside this IF, we're going to show another couple features with the SmartCharts that, again, I think are nicely done and sort of projecting where that glide slope intercept would occur, as well as in a non-precision approach, whether you could reasonably take, do a 3-degree glide and still meet all of your crossings, or where you would intersect with your altitude restrictions. So clearly not much wind out here tonight. So once again, you can see in the plan view and the chart view, our little airplane has turned around. That flashing nose is our actual position. All right, and we're about to cross the IAF inbound, which means we should go to, LPV mode, which means our vertical guidance is active. Again, we've got a ways to go, which we could, again, see on that plan view. But now, since we don't really have basically at the same point we'd be in a vectors to final, if we switch the transition over to vectors, one interesting thing is you'll see this profile view changes, and now they project that glide slope up and out, because again, in a Garmin equipment, once you've activated vectors to final, your vertical guidance is going to be active no matter where you are relative to the final approach fix, where if you're not in vectors to final, it's only going to go active between the IF and the FAF. In this case, again, it's so close to where the FAF is, it's not a lot of practical difference, although again, we can use this to sort of decide where we're going to really throttle back and drop the gear. Now, while we've got a few more minutes of coast, one more thing to show is, again, if for some reason we drop this down to just a lateral nav only, now what you'll see is, again, they're showing a visual descent angle and how that interacts with your step downs. So on this approach, not surprisingly, these step downs are right along the 3-degree slope, so you might consider instead of a dive and drive to just set up a good 3-degree, and you'll need to honor those crossing altitudes, but you'll likely cross pretty close to expectation. Let's switch us back to our LPV. And we're starting to see the glide slope. And as we come on that glide slope, we're going to drop the gear. And again, you can see you want that your sort of the spinner of your propeller in that plan view should ride that glide slope line is what you're looking for and how that's represented. we've got a good cross at the FAF, altitude checks. Then again, if we look over at the GPS view, we have those crossing altitudes. If we were in a lateral nav only mode, those are displayed. Big thing in the GPS view is it's not going to show you minimums because it doesn't have all the things that would compute your minimums correctly. It doesn't know your aircraft category. It doesn't know whether you got the altimeter setting. Where in the SmartChart, if you've gone through everything correctly with the options, it should be selecting for the correct minimums, which in this case is 347 feet. And we'll go ahead and just try and ride this glide slope down to minimums and then go for the miss. And again, we can even pop that out here. There's the miss. There's the gear. Let's climb to 600 to Liar intersection. So there's 600, so we can turn direct. Climb to 2000. All right. Well, that was just a quick introduction to and first impressions to the SmartCharts. I think, again, kudos to Garmin. Really big upgrade over the standard paper charts. Is it a world-changing change to IFR? I wouldn't really say that. I'd say we've already made a lot of progress that direction with how procedures are already displayed via the flight plan modes across the apps and devices. But again, definitely a positive step in the right direction, easier to read, maybe a little easier to get the correct minimums in out of the ordinary conditions. And again, the plan view, definitely way better, I think, than anything else. You have color, you have that adaptability to the actual approach type, and again, really love distance to threshold plotted along with the waypoint distances. So all you IFR pilots out there, hope you found this useful. If you've got your own tips or thoughts about the SmartCharts, leave them in the comments. If you like our aviation content, please like and subscribe. Click the bell to get instant notification of our new videos. We try to release new videos as often as we can. Hopefully we'll be out flying this weekend again, and certainly have a lot more flights already recorded that we're working on. So have a good night, and thank you for watching.